Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fantastic Female Role Models. I'm here today with Tess, who majored in fashion at UW-Madison. And she's going to talk to us basically about just how awesome she is, but also maybe about how good of an artist and a designer she is as well. So, Tess, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit, give us the basic info, and then we can get started.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Appleton, Wisconsin, moved to Madison to go to college for 4 years, and I graduated in textile and fashion design. And now I live in Green Bay, and I'm loving it.
Living that COVID life.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So textile design and fashion, is that what it's called?
Yeah, textile and fashion design.
Okay. Cool. So that's not just like clothing, that could be any kind of textile then. So anything that has to do with cloth.
Right. Yep, exactly.
Cool. So like what are the kinds of things that you like designing then, in that realm? Like what are the things that you were really passionate about?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, the name of it definitely spans really large. So the question of what I really like to design is a good one. I'd say I really want to get into kids wear because kids wear feels the most interpretive and they allow you to have creative liberties without you having to fit within the certain standards of what standard women's wear, men's wear would look like for,
Sure.
at least from a corporate standpoint. Have you ever walked through a store and you look at the kids' clothes and you're like, why don't they make that for me? It's
Yes, all the
because
time.
they let kids wear the fun stuff.
Right.
And then everyone else has to fall under certain standards. So I think kids wear would be really fun.
That does sound really fun because, having a kid myself, he has the coolest clothes ever. And like clothes for adult males are just really boring. It's all very same style, always the same color. Like, I go and try to find like a sweater and it's always like red, green, black. It's like anything
Yeah.
else would be fantastic. But yeah, so that seems really cool.
A couple of years ago, they even tried to come out with a romper for guys.
Oh yeah, I remember the guy romper.
It
Yeah.
failed so bad. You can't do anything creative with men's fashion. Women's fashion, you can get a little creative, but yeah, kids wear is the most avant-garde you can get without being high fashion, I think.
Right. So yeah, you can kind of do whatever you want and not have those restrictions on you, which is probably really freeing. Because being restricted in that way probably doesn't feel great when you're trying to be creative.
Right.
Nice.
Men can't wear rompers, apparently.
No, apparently not. Not that I could pull one off anyway, but that's okay. I'll get over it eventually.
Off, I think.
I don't know. It's been a while since I was in shape.
It's like running gear, kind of, though.
That's true. That's true. I do have my coach in college used to give out all the old gear that we had because we just had it in like cardboard boxes in the basement of our gymnasium. And so like if we like fundraised really well or like if we did something good for the team, he would just like give us stuff because he was trying to get rid of it. And so I have this like old like 70s one-piece tracksuit. It's kind of like a romper.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wear it occasionally, usually when my wife's not around because she gets mad at me whenever I bring it out, but
Old
whatever.
jerseys are fun. I kept my old softball jersey.
There we go. That's right. You got to keep your old stuff because it's legit. Cool.
Sure.
Yeah. So you want to get into kids fashion. What does kind of inspired you to be a designer in the first place? Like what kind of drew you to that path?
Yeah, I really didn't know what I wanted to do at first, and I felt really pressured when I was in high school. Uh, I think most kids still are pressured to go into college right away. And I'm lucky because I picked design on a whim. I just knew I wanted to do something creative. And I was that weird kid that wore heels to high school and dressed up every day. And people would find it weird if I wasn't dressed up. They'd be like, "Hey Tess, are you okay today? Are you having a good day?" And usually, though, it would be when I was wearing stuff for sports days because we did that too.
Right.
But anyway, I was that weird person that loved to dress up. So I found UW-Madison's program and I thought it sounded really great. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this out. And you can go into college undecided. In fact, UW-Madison really encourages that.
Hmm.
They really love helping the student that doesn't know exactly what they want to do. But I think it's nice to take some time and think about what you want to do too. There's nothing wrong with that. You
Right.
can go to college at any point in your life, and I think it's important sometimes to know what you want to do in order to optimize your schooling too.
Right.
Unless you're like me and you try to take a bunch of classes besides your major anyway. And at the end of the day, it was good that I picked something and stuck with it because then I don't think I would have graduated college otherwise.
Too many fun courses.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. When I was at Lawrence, I had to take a lot of courses because of what I wanted to do, but like I ended up taking so many different things in different fields. And like I finished like an introductory course in like anthropology, and I'd be like, well, that was really cool. Maybe it's like I'd be kind of interested in that, but I'm already a junior, so I probably shouldn't be an anthropologist now, or like, oh, I just took this course in some other thing of science, and this is really exciting, but I can't change now because I'm a semester away from graduating. Like I should probably just stay the course at this point. So I get that though, knowing what you want to do.
Good to have those other interests too, and
Yeah.
you want to be well rounded. Of course, your major specifies what you specialize in,
Hmm.
but you want to have all those other key tools in your back pocket to use. And there's so much that goes into a certain job, even if it has a certain title too.
That's true. Yeah, because you never know what your boss is going to ask you next. It's like, hey, do this, and you're like, well, I'm just the designer, and they're like, well, too bad. Like, get after it. And you're like, oh, okay. So yeah, being well rounded is, it's worth it. And I remember, when we met, you were kind of still thinking about that, like, what do I want to do? And you know it's one of those things where I feel like we pressure kids at such a young age, because really 18 is young to
Oh, yeah.
like decide something. It's like, this is going to be what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And that's kind of the attitude that's taken, and that's just not the way it's going to work. Like, since I've graduated college, I've done like 5 different things, and only 2 of them have been related to what I studied in school. So like,
Right.
and my best friend, he graduated in like physical therapy, and he has not once worked a physical therapy job. He does other things. So it's like being able to learn new things and adapt is so critical to being a successful human being, no matter what you want to do, whether it's, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
It comes to a point where you can only plan out your life to a certain extent
Hmm.
because the world's going to throw stuff at you and you're going to have to navigate around it. And the pandemic is a great example of that.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
no one saw that coming and it affected everyone. So,
Right. So speaking to that, then how has being someone who works in the arts and being creative, how has that been affected by the pandemic specifically? Because um, I know one of my friends works in theater, and like their theater is closed, so like they don't really get to do that much right now. But like, you making things with textiles, has that opened opportunities for you maybe?
yeah, everyone was impacted in a different way. It just so happens in my case, the pandemic hit right when I graduated college. So I had a couple job offers pending and they were rescinded once the pandemic hit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so I switched gears and I started looking around me to see if there was local opportunities where I could keep my skills fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up working retail and I worked for a small business in Oshkosh sewing masks.
Oh, cool.
So that was something I never knew was going to happen or what I was going to use my design degree for.
Right.
But it was a really unique challenge. I kind of ran my own sweatshop in my house. But maybe that's not the nicest way to put it, but it ended up being a lot of work.
Yeah,
I got
imagine.
to design the pattern piece for the masks that they wanted to make because they wanted to include a specific nose piece that was different from other masks.
Okay.
That part was fun. I really liked the design part a little better than the sewing part.
Sure.
Because the sewing just got to be very tedious and destroyed my sewing machine a little bit with how many I made. But, it was fun.
Nice.
I liked it.
Yeah.
And then the market got saturated too. So
and then it became...
that dwindled. And then I worked retail solely and then was balancing other stuff.
Right.
So it's not what I planned. I was really hoping to get a full-time job out of college, and now I'm working 2 part-time, but I'm really happy to have jobs, and I still try to utilize my design skills in other ways, and I haven't given up on searching for what would be my dream job either.
Right, because it's out there. It's just, it's not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because once you're skilled, they got to come and find somebody at some point. The demand for your skills isn't going to go away just because everybody's dealing with a disease right now. Eventually it's going to go away. So you got to be able to. Somebody's going to hire Tess soon.
I hope so.
Yeah.
But what they don't really tell you about design too, though, is that since it is very niche, not a lot of people do it. But you have to have a college degree that's specific to design, and you have to have experience.
Right.
So that puts me in a weird situation because I obviously don't have the experience yet since I just graduated. Well, I mean, that was a while ago now, but I graduated,
right.
The pandemic hit, and I'm missing that experience.
Mm-hmm.
But also the design world was definitely not looking to hire new people, I think, when the pandemic hit as well.
Right. So it was just a bad time.
When they look for designers, it's usually really small numbers of new hires too, because once they have you, they want you to stay on for a while.
Yeah, they don't want you to leave.
And I even know some of my friends that did get hired, but a couple were furloughed when right after they got hired too. It's just, with any creative job, I don't think it's deemed super essential, even though it is pretty awesome.
Right. I think it's just that it's essential in ways that are not like you're feeding someone or yeah, or I guess it's not valued the same way because it was kind of crazy, watching the inauguration, and that poet was amazing. Everybody was like, wow, this is so cool. And I was, and then everybody was like, yeah, it was so cool. We should fund the arts. And like, people were like, nah, it's like, people value the things that you create because they're so awesome. But then they're like, we should make it so the more people could do this. So they're like, no, that's not necessary because you did it. So it's all good. And it's like, that's not how it should work, like at all. So have you struggled with that at all, where people, when you were said, I'm going to go into, fashion and textile design, people were like, are you sure you're going to do, like, did you get a lot of whiplash from that, from family or friends or something like that?
Not so much for design. I think design is if you want to put it bluntly, a little more stable choice if you want to go a creative major route. I got more backlash when I was considering majoring for music for a while. That was my other top choice. But my family, not so much my family. I'm fortunate to have a very supportive family.
Right.
But a lot of other people would be like, well, what are you going to do with that? You're not going to really go anywhere. And I always thought that was really sad and discouraging. You never want to put a creative person down, even if you know that, yeah, maybe there's that stereotype of being a starving artist for a while,
Right.
but everyone makes it work. And that's not necessarily true, because if you work hard and you believe in what you're doing, I truly believe you can get anywhere.
Right. In all honesty, it's not necessarily that you're getting, it's nice to get paid for the things you do and the things that you've created, but if you're getting the joy out of creating music or clothes or whatever it is that you're doing, that's the point. Like, yeah, it's nice to get paid for it, but like in the end, you've got to do what you enjoy doing. And if that happens to be something that other people have this, vision of, well, that's their fault, not yours. Like you're still, you got to do what you got to do. Just because they wanted to be a banker since they grew up doesn't mean that like they're inherently better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
And I have to say, going to college for something creative is an experience in itself too, because usually each college has their own campus full of a ton of resources to make it an amazing time while you're there too. And they usually set you up with a bunch of different opportunities as well. So
Right.
I would never discourage someone from doing something creative. All you're going to do is foster that talent and let it grow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic way of thinking about it. Let me think. A lot of because I went to Lawrence, we have a lot of music people. And so a lot of my friends, a lot of my friends were musicians. And so, like I have a friend right now who's getting her, like, it's not a PhD, but it's like, it basically is she does clarinet. So it's like she's using it. One of my classmates is literally out of college, got on a Broadway show just because she played the mandolin. Like, it's just an instrument that nobody really plays, and they're like, hey, you want to be on this, do this thing? And she's like, yeah, I guess so. Like, so like, people always knock down doing a creative major, but out of the, I don't know, 10 or 15 friends I have who are professional musicians, they're all successful in some way, and it's not like they none of them have really gone through this kind of starving artist phase. They're being successful in what they had set expectations. They're like, this is what I think I can do, and they didn't let anybody stop them from doing it, and now they're able to do what they love, which is be creative and sing or play an instrument or whatever. And it's like, they're not a doctor, they're not making six figures, but they're making enough to survive and do what they want to do, and that's fantastic, and nobody should be discouraged from doing that. This coming from someone who does not really have a creative bone.
Well, I love Lawrence, though. That was actually why I wanted to do music for a while, because I was in the Lawrence Girl Choir for a really long time.
Oh, do you know Jacqueline Cotman then?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
I went to school with her.
Joined late in when I was in that program, but yeah, I do know her.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, we went to school together. We worked together. Yeah,
but
she's amazing.
Everyone in that program is pretty great.
Yeah. No, it's well run, and they do amazing things with the people who are in it. So it's pretty awesome. And I've heard that it's gotten even more awesome since she's kind of in charge of it now, I think. So
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
undoubtedly.
killing it. Nice. Cool. So let's see here. Um, so have you ever gotten like artist block at all? And if you ever have, like, how did you get over that? As someone who always has it, how do you get over it?
Yeah, I thought that was one of your best questions when you were sending me them to look at beforehand. I
Yeah,
wasn't quite sure how to approach it because I don't want to sound like big-headed, but I think I've had it very few times, but probably because I think I know how to deal with it.
right.
Um, you know, the best thing to do is if you have artist block is to just do something else. And I don't know if that's good advice or the stereotypical advice. That's what works for me. You
Yeah,
just find whatever other hobbies or activities you like to do. You do that for a while. And like many other things, an idea will come out of nowhere for the most part, is what I've found. It
hmm,
kind of comes when you least expect it. Like you could be, I don't know, shopping at the grocery store, and then all of a sudden you see something and you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of this before?
hmm.
You just have to stop what you're doing, because if you have artist block, you're probably a little frustrated and worn out, and you think you've thought of everything and you're mad and upset.
Yeah.
So you just need to stop and do something else, and you're already thinking about it. It's already there in the back of your head. So something will come to you when you're doing something else. It's kind
Hmm.
of as easy as that.
Well, yeah, you gotta find inspiration from
From
places you wouldn't
anywhere.
think of, I guess. Yeah. So it's because yeah,
Yeah.
'cause it's everywhere. So if you're not actively looking, it'll just kind of appear in front of you, which is probably why everybody's so like, oh, artists are so great. It's like, well, no, they're you know, they get more light bulb moments, I guess, than those of us who don't, because I'm I'm so artist challenged. It's sad.
No, I was asking my fiance, Ryan, I was like, do you think I can be cheesy and also say how I had completely sworn off all guys or just dating in general? And then Ryan came along and just completely changed my viewpoint. It is kind of like that. Like you give up, but then all of a sudden it'll come out of nowhere. Anything.
Yeah. I'm gonna be just as cheesy. I know when I met, well, when I ended up starting to date my wife, uh, about, I don't know, 2 months beforehand, I was like, no more. We're taking a break. Nothing. And then 2 months later, I was like, got it, got it figured
Yep.
out. So yeah,
Ex-
sometimes you just need to step away, and then it'll come to you. And it's like, oh, there we go. Boom.
yep.
Yep. Yeah.
We're
Which,
just
by the way, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, we're excited. And that's
Hmm.
something that has changed with the pandemic as well, but we're still really happy to be getting married this April.
Nice. Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. I know a couple of my friends did the elopement and then they'll throw a party later route. So they're just like,
Yeah.
we're gonna get married now because we want to be married, and then we'll just throw a party when people are able to be around us again. And I was like, see, that's fun. Because,
See,
but
I like that idea anyway. Who says when you have to throw a party? You could just decide at any point in your life that you want to throw a huge party for
mhm,
any reason.
yeah,
So
we're adults now. We can do that. For those
I
of you
think I'll
listening, if you're an adult,
play
you can do
credit
whatever you
card.
want. There are no consequences. Yeah. Oh gosh.
Anyway, oh, we were talking about artist block.
We were talking about artist
Um,
block.
yeah, I just, I don't know. My ideas come to me in really random ways. So that's how I didn't know how to answer your question.
That's all right.
Sometimes I wait, like this sounds really cheesy and weird too, but I'd been thinking not too long back that I really want to revamp my whole portfolio while I'm applying to new jobs.
Right.
And I went to bed and woke up, and the next morning I had thought of all of my ideas. Like they came to me. I must have been thinking of it overnight. I don't
Right.
know. But I woke up and I just knew what I was gonna
Gonna do.
do.
Nice. That's the kind of morning I wish I had when I was teaching. Because like, there'll be nights where you like go to bed and you're like, gosh, I have no idea what I'm gonna do tomorrow. And then you wake up and you're like, I got it now. But that didn't happen to me very often. It was more like I get to school and be like, what am I gonna do?
Sometimes not having a plan is the best plan, though.
That is also true, because then, you can at least say like you were being spontaneous. There.
Yeah, then you just have to be creative on the spot.
Yeah.
Which is also a good skill to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of that, you were talking about your portfolio. What do you think is like the coolest, or not to say the coolest, but like the best thing you've ever designed, created, whatever?
I was pretty proud of my senior thesis. I wanted to combine, we were talking previously about how I have a lot of different interests besides just design too.
Right.
And I really wanted to combine that in my final big project that summed up my whole college career.
Right.
And what I did was I ended up making out of simple white cotton a bunch of, I call it silhouettes of different traditional outfits worn by the top cultures of the top spoken languages in Wisconsin besides English.
Oh, okay.
Side note, I'm a huge language nerd and I took a bunch of linguistics courses. So
Nice.
I really wanted to incorporate that. And I just love learning about different cultures and people in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I did was it was a combination of language and design, and each piece represented one of the top 5 languages spoken in Wisconsin. It was English, Spanish, Hmong, German, and I did Norwegian, which Norwegian had tied with another language. I don't remember what, as technically the top spoken.
Artist choice.
But I was biased towards Norwegian because I took that in college, so I kind of wanted to show it off a little bit. And I have some Norwegian heritage, so that's why I did that sneaky little incorporation there. But yeah, I did a whole exhibit speaking out for language and culture, and I got to design those pieces. So it was fun for me because I got to have my own space in the gallery. So I set up different facts about language and how our language education in the US is not very great, and how everywhere else speaks a bunch of different other languages, and basically just speaking out on the stereotype of how everyone should know English, when I don't necessarily think that's a fair expectation that a lot of Americans make, and that I feel a lot of Americans need to be more cultured.
Most Americans don't even know how to speak English, right? So
that is true. My English grammar is awful. That was the hardest class my sophomore year of high school, because
learning all the rules and stuff.
Yeah, we were doing a bunch of grammar related stuff and I realized I knew nothing. Or even today, I was talking with Ryan and something came up and we were just like, English is so weird.
It is though, because it's like, it's this combination of like 10 different languages, and there aren't really rules. They're just exceptions to rules. So like, you can do this, and this, but only when this, and this happens. And it's like no other language is organized like ours. And it's so ridiculous.
It is. Yeah. No, and I remember what we were talking about. It's the phrase, don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
We were talking about that and where it came from and just how, anyway, I don't need to get nerdy about it, but I just thought that was a funny example of how English is so weird.
Yeah. And that's it's cool that you were able to combine like all the things you were interested into something that you ended up being so passionate about, but something that you like, that you're, using it for good, I guess, for being an awesome senior.
Yeah,
And
and I thought,
yeah.
My professor at first wanted me to do some cumulative thing that would look really good to companies.
Oh,
Basically,
sure.
doing like a mock presentation of how I would design for, say, I don't know, Target or something,
Right.
and doing
Yeah.
a bunch of different looks and all of their technical packets and everything.
Right.
But then I was just like, no, this is my time in college. This is the one time I'll get to do what I want to do instead of working for someone else. And I really wanted to make a statement about all the things I was passionate about. So
That's
it
awesome.
was fun.
That's very you, Tess.
Oh, thanks.
You're very welcome. Going back to the nerdy language thing, because I'm gonna hop on that bandwagon.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, I can talk about that forever. So
so
just know what you're getting into.
fair enough. So my grandfather, he knew how to speak 5 languages. He knew English, German, Greek, Armenian, and Russian. Um, and he moved here in 48. And my dad was born soon afterwards. And he never taught any of those other languages to my dad. My dad only knows English. And my dad's frustrated about it, but I am also incredibly frustrated about it because like I have never been very good at picking up languages, but I can only imagine how awesome it would have been if like I had my grandpa like teaching me this stuff when I was like young enough to absorb it.
Right.
Like, and the reason he knows all those languages is just because of like the historical background he was in. But like it's just mind blowing, like that he knew, he wasn't necessarily educated either. He was a carpenter. Like that was what he did. But like being able to just by necessity learning all those languages was just insane.
That
And
is so awesome.
yeah,
And too bad that he didn't try to teach your dad and you.
I think that was more of an immigrant thing.
Uh,
Like you move here and then you're supposed to blend in, and like that's what they tell you. It's like try to speak English as best you can. If your kids grow up with accents, they're gonna get teased or whatever.
yeah.
Like, oh well.
But when you're young, that is the best time to learn language. Kids are like sponges for everything in general, but for language,
Yeah,
that
like
is the
3 to
best. I
5.
think it's when you turn, I think it was 18 or 21, somewhere around there, your ability to learn a language decreases by a certain percentage like every year.
It's like a really high percentage too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm doomed
So it's the best free gift you can give your kid is if you let them learn another language because they don't even have to think about it. They just soak it in.
Yeah, they just absorb it. All right, I got to get my wife on speaking Spanish in the house again because she knows enough to be conversational. So we should get on that.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
should.
yeah.
And it really, they do studies too on how it changes the pathways in the brain and makes a whole bunch of different other connections that don't exist in other people that don't speak more than one language's brain. So
Yep.
I'm a huge advocate, obviously, for speaking multiple languages.
No.
But then again, do I get the opportunity to use other languages very often? No, unfortunately, because most of the people I hang out with just speak English at the same time as well.
That's all right. You can't force them to learn, I guess.
No.
Yeah, they
But
can't.
what is fun is I do still Skype or well, Zoom. Dang it, I just aged myself there, didn't I? I
That's all
said
right.
Skype.
I still use Skype. Don't worry.
I Zoom or video chat with my friends from Spain all the time, still regularly. And that was when I was lucky to go on the Spain school trip into my
Oh,
junior
right.
year of high school. I
Nice.
still talk with them.
Yeah,
all the time. So that's pretty cool.
that's legit. Do you get to you know Norwegian then, right? So do you get to use that at all ever?
No, and I haven't been to Norway, but that's on my bucket list.
Oh, I feel like we should stop calling them bucket lists and just be like, it's on our list. Because if you make it a bucket list thing, then you have the opportunity to push it off.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't have said that because usually I don't really believe in bucket lists anyway. I like to believe in like a full list where you just look at everything you have done so far and
Fair enough.
appreciate it. But I would, I have to admit, like to go to Norway someday because how can you learn Norwegian and know
And then
how to
not
speak
not
it and
go
not
not
go
go and hang
to
out
the
at
one
least once.
place that speaks it? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many places I want to travel. And it's sad to me that I will probably not be able to go to most of them, but that's okay. I'll get over it.
Well,
Uh,
it's one of the most tragic parts of the pandemic too, I think. I've been kind of forced to adopt a hermit lifestyle, and that is not usually the person I am. So
right.
it's kind of funny. I hope I'm not eternally a homebody now.
You got to just break out of it. Like the moment we're all safe, just like leave the house and don't come back for like a couple weeks.
Well, Ryan's never been out of the country, and he had just gotten his passport right before the pandemic hit too, and we were gonna go somewhere, but
Oh well.
c'est la vie.
It's all right. That should be your thing. The pandemic's over. Once Norway will let you in, just go. No matter
Yeah,
what's going on in your life. They're like, "Hey, we need you to work." Nope, sorry. I'm going to Norway.
yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. I think the one place that I actually know that I'll be able to get to like relatively easily is Austria because I have family there. So like
Oh,
I'd have people to stay with and I have people who could help me because I can't speak German. Nowhere close. So but yeah, that place is sweet.
oh,
Yeah, the things they do there with like their art and their crystal is amazing. Like
oh.
they're like the place to get crystal or something like that. And so like I've been to Austria once before and we spent like 4 hours in a crystal shop just looking because it was insane the stuff they made out of something that I wouldn't normally think of as like something easily moldable into something else, but it's like
Yeah,
whoa, like like horses, like whole horses of crystal. It's like how like I can't even draw a horse and you made it out of a rock that I so it's like that's crazy. Oh
that's
gosh.
cool.
Yeah, it's
I never
sweet.
knew about that either.
Yeah, another cool place to check
You
out
know,
is
travel.
hmm?
Don't say that you're not going to get to travel. Because if you say you're not going to do something, then you're definitely
Then
not
I
going
won't
to
do
do
it.
it.
I should take my own advice. um Another cool place is Venice. I've been to Venice as well, and they do glass blowing there, and that is super cool as well, like because they'll do a demonstration for you too. So like
Yeah.
they sit you down in an amphitheater and they're like, we're gonna make one of these, and they'll like pull out something like fantastic and they'll make one in like 10 minutes and you'll just be like, what? Like they don't even have like a sketch or a plan or anything. They're just like, we're gonna make a horse out of glass, and then they'll just make it, and it's super crazy.
You know, if you liked that random tangent, do you watch a lot of TV?
Yes.
They on Netflix, I don't remember what the series is called, but it's set up like Chopped, if you know Chopped the cooking show,
Right.
but with glass making.
Ooh.
And I forgot what it's called, but you should look that
If
up.
it's on Netflix, I can
I
figure it
finished
out.
it in a day, I think, and it was really good.
That sounds really awesome. Okay, something to add to my list.
It was set up the same style, like there's all the different contestants and they get voted off based on whatever they make in a certain allotment of time.
Cool. Awesome. All right. All right. That's gonna be my on my to-do list for right after this then is to add that to my Netflix queue.
Mm-hmm. You
Very sweet.
should.
Awesome. Okay. So I've got like one or two more questions for you. The first one is, who do you draw inspiration from? You know, obviously artists draw from all different places, but like, are there specific people or specific things that you seem to kind of come back to often?
Yeah. I was thinking about this question too. Is it too general if I say that I'm really grateful that I have my family because they're really supportive and inspirational to what I do?
Absolutely not. If that
I
inspires
feel,
you, then that's what inspires you.
I feel blessed because my parents and my sisters have been absolutely wonderful um, to have in my life. They are super intelligent and compassionate, and their work ethic is super admirable. And if anything, when I was trying to figure out what to do in college, they were a little too like, do whatever you want. And I wanted them to tell me more. I was like, no, tell me what I should be doing. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I have to say them first because they're like my rock. And I don't know where I'd be without them either. Otherwise, let's see. It kind of depends on what inspiration you're talking about. Like musical inspiration, I love Florence and the Machine.
They're good.
um, just female role models in general. I'm a big fan of Michelle Obama,
Mm-hmm.
Emma Watson. Um, let's see, Emily Dickinson, even though she's
She's a role
pretty
model.
old and no longer with us.
That's all right.
Yeah, I don't know. You can draw inspiration from everywhere. So that's why it's a really difficult question for me, I think,
Right.
because I could even be inspired by someone I meet in my day-to-day job.
Right.
I work at a spa here in Green Bay as a front desk and an attendant. And I like working service jobs because you meet all kinds of different people. Sometimes the people that remind you that people are crazy, but also there's the people that remind you that you love people.
Right.
And I was talking to this random lady, and I thought she was super inspiring by how she carried out a simple conversation with me one day when I was working.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's just too many directions that I can answer this question with. Like the little kid in me loves the Iditarod ever since second grade. So I still really look up to like Lance Mackey and all those people too. That's what I mean. I could go a bunch of different random ways with who think is most inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I mean, I feel the same way sometimes, you know, it's like, as someone who is multi-interested, you know, who doesn't just focus in on one thing and really kind of tries to be as diverse as possible with what I try to do. It's hard to narrow it down. Like, people are like, so what inspired you to do this? You're like, I mean, I could tell you that I woke up one morning and I decided that's what I was going to do, but like, that's not as exciting as probably what you're looking for, you know, or like, you know, as you said, you're inspired by so many different things that like sometimes you can't quite pinpoint it because it's a couple different things coming together, and then you're like, aha, and you've kind of created this new idea from, like, you know, the four things that you got it from. And so they're like, what inspired you to do this? You're like, I don't know. But
And I suppose I could have answered with maybe designers that I admire, but it's probably a controversial thing too, is that I don't know if I really admired the highest fashion houses very much.
well,
Just because,
they are the worst because they're the highest ones.
yeah, and they're in fashion, there is a definite glass ceiling
Right.
too. I would say most of the people that make up the major or just the employees of anything fashion are female for the most part, but there is a certain point where all at the top, it's just men.
Right.
And the FIT in New York came out with a pretty good article on that. I think it was a while ago now, but if you're curious,
Yeah.
look into that. I don't know if I admire top fashion houses, which is probably weird coming from someone who went to school for design. I just think any artist too could probably create really cool looking outfits, but just because they don't have the name or notoriety, it doesn't get seen as much too. I don't
Right.
know.
Right. Because you could have not even gone to school for fashion, but just your own style, your own way of dressing, the way that you've kind of cultivated your look, I guess, is, it might never be seen by the people at the top of the fashion world, but it doesn't mean that you're not creative and that you haven't made your own, your own place in that thing. Because at least the people around you are going to see it and be like, whoa, that's legit. Because I remember I'd see like you post your projects on Facebook and I'd be like, that's really cool. Or it's like, and it's not like Gucci's gonna come by and be like, yes, Tess Hurley, I love your language shirt, your language clothes.
Yeah.
Let's make that happen at the highest level. But like, it's still cool. Like it's still something like that nobody else has ever really thought of or done. Like that's still awesome, regardless of the fact that like the people who know what they're doing think so or not.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite designer question always stumps me because always found myself admiring more my professors that were submitting their stuff locally, or just people whose style I really liked, more than having a certain fashion house in mind that I really liked to research and look up to. I don't know. I guess that's the Wisconsinite in me too.
It's okay. It's just because I
Maybe if
asked
I
the
grew
hard
up on the
questions,
East
obviously.
Coast, yeah, maybe if I grew up on the East Coast, people would,
Yeah,
I
you'd
don't
be
know,
more like
maybe I'd have
drawn
more
to
of a
like one
formed
of the big
opinion.
ones or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Born
we
into
don't
it.
have high fashion in the Midwest, and I've lived here too long.
You mean flannels aren't high fashion?
It is for Wisconsin.
It is. It depends on how flashy your flannel is.
Yeah, no, and flannel's a serious thing too.
Oh, I know
Did
it
you
is.
know, they're called tartans, and
Yes.
I think it's in Scotland. They
Mhm.
have patents for every type of different variation of like a plaid, but they call it tartans.
Yeah.
I always thought that was really cool. If you
Actually,
want to create a certain one, it has to be under a certain style and registered with the national, I don't know what it's called, but like
their
National
national
Employment
registry of
Tartans in Scotland or something.
that's insane. Because I
Right.
just saw this like 2 days ago. There's an article I saw that um, they because there's become kind of more of an influx of Muslim immigrants to Scotland, and so they created like an official like Muslim tartan for
Did
them,
they?
so like they can fit in and be Scottish, but it's like in there, like it's got like the greens and the yellows and like it's got the color scheme of all of that, everything. It looked really cool. I
That
was
is
like,
so
well, that's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, they even made like a tartan headscarf, and like they did the whole 9 yards, and it's like the official one. So if you're a Muslim and you go to Scotland, you can fit in now apparently. So it's like I was like, well, that's sweet.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. It was one of those things where it like flashed up on my news feed, and I was like, this is interesting. And I knew I was going to be talking to you soon, so I was like, I'm going to read this. I want to know what it's all about. It was pretty cool. Okay, I've got one last question And then after that, we can just keep talking because this has been fun. Um, so what is your design process like? Like we've talked a little bit about where you get your ideas from, and then we've talked a little bit about like what your end product is, but the middle part where you're going from this idea to the end thing, how do you get from A to B?
Yeah, good question. College was nice because we got to experiment with a bunch of different mediums. I found that I really like watercolor. So at first I will draw an idea. I really like putting them into watercolor for some
Okay.
reason. I don't know. It fit with, I don't know, what I liked to draw.
Yeah.
Or just the type of the oh my goodness, I can't think of the word. What do we call them? We call them croquis, if you're interested. That's kind of, do you know what that word means? I didn't learn it until college.
Is that like
Croquis are the like human figure that
yeah,
you
the yeah.
drawing.
I didn't
Yeah.
know it was called that, but I know what you're talking about.
I liked making croquis in watercolor. It was easier for me. And they looked they looked the best out of the other things I tried to.
That can't hurt.
So I'll do that. And then we also learn how to take things and put them into digital format of whatever we're designing too. So it depends on if I want to have just a drawing to show for whatever purpose, to include my portfolio or show someone an idea I have. In the real design fashion world, you'll always want to put it into Adobe Illustrator or another online program like that and draw it. That's called the flat sketch. And then you put that into a technical packet to note all the specificities and measurements of each part of whatever it is you're creating. So I'll do that if I'm designing something more commercially. And then if I want to, I can bring it to life and go shopping for fabric. And I bought my own sewing machine at the beginning of last year, and I've been doing some more sewing. That's what I used all them to make all those masks. But I am another weird thing about being a designer. I'm not the most traditional designer because the sewing part isn't as fun for me.
Right.
I think for some people, they love sewing, and that's where you get more into people who love doing alterations or working in the bridal industry to help with fittings. And that wasn't me.
Yeah. You don't
I
want to be a
tried that out
tailor.
a little bit when I was working retail at David's Bridal, and I don't know, the sewing part just frustrates me more. I like doing it to an extent, but I would rather do it for myself on my own time because it's very time consuming and it's very technical. So it takes a lot of focus to make sure you're doing things right.
Right.
But I'm grateful. Going to college taught me how to sew too. I didn't know how to sew before college, and UW-Madison's program is very heavy in sewing and making your own designs and bringing them to life.
Right.
Whereas a lot of other schools, if you go to school for design, it's all just the online portion of it.
Right.
Where you draw it on the computer and you never actually bring it to life, because unfortunately, once you get a job as a designer, that is the job. Usually, I think almost every company in the US ships their technical packets overseas in order to
Mass produce them.
have other people sew the garments, and then they get shipped back here.
Right.
So it's very untraditional to actually sew garments as a designer on the job. This is me speaking from never actually being hired as a designer yet, but that's something that I know.
But you picked it up from in general. You just kind of know that's what happens.
Yes.
Well, that's okay. At least you get to do it. You can do it on your own though, because what are they going to do? Stop you?
And I'm sorry, I ended up going way beyond the first question that you asked me, but I hope that was okay.
No, that was great. That was fantastic. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm out of questions for you. Is there anything that you felt that you really needed to get out there on the internet while you have this soapbox to say whatever you want?
I thought it was really sweet that you reached out to me to be a female role model, because I think during the pandemic, it's been a little challenging to think that of myself as being someone that other people look up to,
Mm-hmm.
because I've had my own challenges, as everyone has, but with dealing with the fact that I'm still looking for a job, and that some things just don't turn out the way you were thinking.
Right.
So I was flattered, and it made me think, all right, yeah, maybe I am a good example though. It's good to still believe in myself, and I'm not going to give up looking for a job in design.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really not. And I just want to polish my portfolio and keep trying. And I think that whole attitude has really led to a lot of positive experiences in my life thus far, is to never give up your drive and to keep believing in who you are and what you're doing.
Right. Well, I was glad to have you, because since I've met you, you've always struck me as someone who kind of, you've decided what you want to do once you have, and then you stick with it. For those of you who don't know, I met Tess because I was her cross country coach, and I remember specifically there was a stretch of races that you had where you ran the same time 3 weeks in a row, just the same 5K over and over again. And you ran it differently each time too. Your splits were different races, different courses, the whole 9 yards, but it was always the same time. And I remember you came to me and you're like, Coach, what do I do? I'm running the same time every week. And, it was one of those things where I was like, look, we're training, we're going to get to this part where we're going to taper off, and the time's just going to come off. It'll be fine. And I feel like it was one of those things where it's hard having those failures kind of stack up, because I feel like as a runner, that's something that you would consider a failure. Running the same time 3 weeks in a row is not what you wanted or expected, right? You were going to be better the next week, and it just didn't happen. Right. But I know, even when you asked me, because you came up to me and you were like, Coach, what do I do? But I could tell in your eyes that you already knew that didn't really matter what I said, because you were going to do better the next week anyway. Because you're that kind of person. You have that drive, you have that determination, and you believe in yourself. You believe in what you're doing. And I remember we were on a run, and you're like, yeah, I don't really know what I want to do. And you were doing that mural or something at the high school. And I was like, well, you're going to do art? And you were like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, you should. You're like, and here you are, right? You're like, you're doing it. And that's you. That's what you do. You decided this is what you're passionate about, and you went after it. And that's something to look up to, even if you're not employed in the the thing that you thought you were going to be employed in, or if your plans didn't work out the way they were. It doesn't mean that you're not a role model. It just means that life sucks sometimes, and you are going to persevere, and you're going to figure it out, which is something to look up to.
Oh, well, thanks.
You're very
And
welcome.
that's so sweet. Oh my gosh, I remember cross country.
Cross country is the best.
I think I still just have like a consistent time or a speed that I like to run at. I don't know. At least the consistency is there. But I remember that. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know how someone runs the exact same time 3 times a row.
especially in a 5K,
Yeah.
like that's a long enough race where you'd expect there to be some variation. Nah, you were right on it. You were ready.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Because I know, um, so when I was in high school, I didn't start running until my freshman year. So I very out of shape, didn't run, no experience, whatever. And so then my first year, or it was my second year doing track, I would run the 800. And, my coach signed me up to be on the relay, and that was the first event. So I did my thing or something, and I ran like a 2:20 or something, but I was upset because that was what I had ran the week before. And I was like, gosh, coach, I just didn't run any faster, like it just wasn't, it wasn't a good race. And he's like, well, the 800's in an hour. You want to do that too? And I was like, sure, put me in it. Like, let's do it. So like an hour later, I line up to do it again because I was like, my race was awful. I'm gonna do better this time. Like I'm gonna run it differently because like the last time I had run slower and then tried to speed up and it hadn't worked out. So I was like, I'm just gonna go really fast. And so I did that and I died and I ran the same time, like an hour
Oh,
later. And I was like, well, darn it. And like that's how like my whole thing is kind of played out. I hit a time and then I run that time for like months, and then all of a sudden I'll jump back down again and I'll go even faster, and then I'll run that time forever. And then, being consistent isn't so bad. At least they know what to expect from you.
no, yeah. And
Yeah,
at least you have the drive to push yourself in the first place. The fact that you wanted to do it again
right.
and that you even participate in races anyway. I mean, some people never even get to that point.
That's
So
true. That's
that's
true.
inspiring.
Yeah. I have a soft spot for runners. I feel like not just because I am one, but I feel like, people would pick different sports. Like I know you did basketball and softball, and those are fun. And I was a baseball player. I love playing baseball. But like running is like so like fundamentally independent, and
Yeah.
it's so willpower driven. You have to be willing to get up and do the work, and then you only, there's like a little bit of talent involved, but for the most part, it's how much work you put in directly affects how much better you get. Whereas in baseball, there was a stretch of a couple of years where I didn't really practice that much, but I was good enough at that point to get by, even if I wasn't practicing that much. But if I stop running, I'm not going to get any faster.
Right.
So, I think just being a runner or being willing to put yourself into that situation where you have to do that kind of training speaks a lot to who you are as a person and what you're willing to do to accomplish what you want to do. Um, which is why
I
I think
still
everybody should run. Hmm?
how much I still talk about how much cross country changed me for the better. I think it was completely foundational to who I am now. And when they say once you're a runner, you're like always a runner for life, that part of it is true too. It's still my favorite form of exercising.
Mm-hmm.
Do I
Yeah.
do it as often? No.
Yeah.
But it just, because it's so independent, like you said, it gives you the skills to be able to overcome things on your own.
Right.
Because in a race, you're pushing yourself to be faster and to, make yourself better in practices. And it gives you this new mental capacity you never knew that you had. And you
Right.
can use it for anything.
Mm-hmm. It's very transferable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can use it for whatever.
Or I always loved how Mr. Gross would say that the whole race, all it matters is up here, you know? that
Mhm.
it was all in your head. It didn't even matter how in shape you were too
Yeah,
sometimes.
100%.
Yeah,
Like there were days where I'd show up to run and it would be like, if you're not there, you're not up for it, it's just not going to happen that day. And,
right.
physically you could do it, but if you're going to hold yourself back in your head, then there's no way. And that applies to anything. It's the same, it's like the whole, like, if you're thinking about how you're going to lose, you're not going to win. And
Hmm.
it's the same thing with anything, whether it be your job or being at home or anything. You got to have the right attitude or else you're not going to get anywhere. And you know bringing it back to the original thing we were talking about, that's something I feel like you do really well. Maybe that's just because you're a runner, but it also is because I feel like that's just kind of foundationally who you are, which is something to aspire to be willing to keep pushing, even if you're not 100% sure even where you're going. Just the willingness to keep going is an admirable trait.
Oh, well, thank you. That
You're
is
very
so kind
welcome.
of you. And it's all on perspective too. You
Right.
said you don't have a creative bone in your body. Well, Vincent van Gogh said, if you say you can't paint, then you should pick up a paintbrush and paint and silence that thought.
Ah, well, all right. Maybe if you saw some of the things I've drawn, you'd change your mind. Yeah, I'm
I don't
I'm
know.
trying to get my son to draw more, um, because the one of the things that he struggles with, this is hard first grade stuff here, is holding the pencil right, because
Uh,
he's working on his writing, and so he likes to like fist grip it, and he needs to do like the real holding thing. And so to kind of get him to practice more, we've been having him draw. So we got colored pencils and we've been doing it that way. And we've been teaching him like, hey, if you hold it the right way, look at how much better it looks. And he's like, oh yeah. And now he's writing a lot better. But so yeah, me and him have been coloring a lot. Here, hold on a second.
so fun.
Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, a couple days ago, he was like, "Hey, Dad, how do I draw a cube?" And so I was teaching him how to draw cubes.
Oh,
Yeah. And then
that's
after that, we
cool.
made an owl.
Aw,
Yeah. So we've
I
been,
like Luigi too.
yeah, Luigi. Yeah, he's playing Luigi's Mansion right now, and he loves that game. So
For
he,
what gaming device? For the
uh,
GameCube?
well, yes, for the GameCube, it's right back here. I've got it.
I love GameCube.
Yeah. But then we also have the newest one on the Switch, so he plays that one too. And
Very nice.
he's much better at it than I am now, which is terrifying sometimes.
Yeah, for first grader. Wow.
Yeah, he's a quick learner. He he knows what he's doing now. No, like once he gets like what he's supposed to do, sometimes getting to that part is the hard part. And then after he understands what he's doing, it's like get out of his way because he's gonna do it. Very independent
Well,
little
he
kid.
certainly has that drive too.
He certainly does, unless you want him to leave the house. Then the drive goes away.
Oh.
But that's a 6-year-old thing. He never wants to leave.
And pandemic. Who wants to leave the house anymore?
I mean, sometimes we
That's how
just get
I
in the car and
became.
drive for a little bit just to like be
Oh,
out of the
yeah.
house. Yeah, because you can't stagnate yourself like that for too long, even when you're 6.
But Ryan and I have become more of gamers recently because of the pandemic too.
Very
We
nice.
play a lot of GameCube and or just board games in general now.
There you go. There's your new inspiration. Board game
Yeah.
inspired.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll send you some stuff. I can send you some game stuff. We can
My
talk about it a little
sisters
bit.
love Animal Crossing too. If you like Animal Crossing.
I've actually been okay, so here we go. I do have an artistic bone in my body. So I've been playing the latest Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With
and
rocks.
right, and you can design your own clothes. and I'm like all about that. So I've been making, I guess I am too a designer. I've been making Animal Crossing clothing.
See, there you
There we
go.
go. Okay. So from the beginning of this video to the end of this video, you've convinced me I'm an artist. So clearly she's fantastic. She's a role model right here. We've got proof. Um, but yeah, so like I've been like slowly working on like doing that kind of thing. And like that's right at my level where I feel comfortable doing like pixel art is like the gist of the high point of my artistic level at this point, I guess. But that's okay.
No, it's kind of fun on Animal Crossing too, because they actually have different sleeve patterns and stuff too.
Yeah, yeah. And
I really
you
like
can
that.
really do a lot more with it than you think you can when you first take a look at it. And it's like, oh, I can really get into this.
If you
Concrete.
want, you could use that as your design process. You can make it on Animal Crossing first and then bring it to life with your sewing machine.
I'll have to reteach myself how to sew. I had to take they had us take like a home economics course in middle school where I grew up. And so half of it was sewing and the other half was foods. And I remember I got an A in the foods part and I got a D in the sewing part. And so it averaged out to like a B minus because I was really bad. Like sewing machines and me don't get along. Um, but
Yeah,
that's okay.
too, but we sewed like one button and that
Oh,
was it.
really?
And then we had to iron a shirt.
That's all
Those are
you
the only
did?
things we did sewing related that counted for a grade. And
What?
the majority of it was cooking. I think our teacher just liked us to cook more
That's fair.
versus sew.
I mean, brownies, something that you get. Brownies always wins. Yeah. Yeah, I had to
No,
make
we
a hat.
learned the table manners. Does that age me too?
Oh,
We
I had
had
to
to,
do that. I had to do that as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, we sat at our tables and had to eat a proper meal, like set the table right
Right.
and
And you had to like
finish your
learn
meal.
which fork to use and everything and all of that.
You had to make sure you're eating at the same pace as everyone else and have a nice conversation.
Oh, I would fail at that. Yeah, no, because like in school we would do our because I was on the cross country team, we would all sit together and we'd eat all of our meals together basically. So like we were always eating together. And like the way Lawrence's cafeteria works is it's open from this time to this time, and they can't really kick you out once you go in. So like we'd go in and we'd eat like in the first 25 minutes, like we'd all just scarf, and then we'd sit there for like 2 hours. And so like we did the you eat first and then you talk afterwards forever. Like they usually have to kick us out at the end. Like they'd be like, okay, cross country team, you need to leave. And we'd be like, can't we stay for like 10 more minutes? And they're like, no, you have to leave. And they're like, aw. Yeah, they were, but yeah, so I would have never passed that class then, obviously. So
Yeah.
I eat rather quickly. Awesome.
I wish I could eat the same amount of food I did when I was in cross country.
Oh, me too. Me too.
That's one of the best perks about running too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not just determined. You can eat whatever you want,
Yep.
whenever you want. Yeah.
That's something I would still like to do if we're talking about things we want to do later in our life too after the pandemic ends. I still want to run a half or full marathon.
I would
Before
still
I
like to
kept
help
saying
train
that I
you.
wanted to do the full marathon, and all the people around me kept saying, well, have you even run a half? And I was like, I don't know, go big or go home. I
Yeah,
want to do the whole thing.
do the whole thing. Yeah, I would 100% write a plan for you. I already wrote one, but I will write another one for you if you
So
want me.
that falls into my same mindset, I think, is that I put my mind to something and I want to do it. Like
Yeah,
I would do the whole thing. I don't know why people are telling me I have to do the half first.
you don't. People do the full one first. It's fine. Whatever. And I have a proven track record of one person who has successfully completed both that I helped. So
Oh, really?
my plan works.
Who?
Actually, it was someone I coached at Kakana. Um,
Okay.
I don't know if you know her. It's Catherine Cops.
Oh, I don't think I know her.
No, you know Hannah Borchard, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she knows Hannah. They're the same year. They're friends. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
when I coached her and she was like, "Hey, I want to run a half marathon. Can you help me?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so she did that. That was 2 years ago, and now just last year before the pandemic happened, she did the full. Um, and now she's taking kind of a break, but mostly because
Ooh,
COVID. But yeah, it
yeah.
worked. She got in shape. So if you trust in the plan, it works. And mine is very adaptable, so it works around your schedule and what you need to do. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty sweet.
I love running, but when it gets cold out, I don't know. I get a little more lazy when it's cold because the cold really affects me. I already am someone that gets cold really easily, so I don't
I
know.
feel like that's the Norwegian in you.
Is it?
Well, maybe it's like the I don't know. I know one of my friends is from Sweden, and like she gets cold really easily too, and apparently so does her entire family. So like I think maybe it's just like a Nordic thing. Like that's just it's ingrained in you.
But it would make me think the opposite because since it's such a cold place to begin with, then shouldn't I be able to withstand it more? I don't know.
I
Plus, Wisconsin has the same amount of winter and coldness, so
That's true.
I should have more of a coldness backbone
Tolerance.
growing up here.
Yeah. Well, we also know how to dress for it though. I think that's part of the issue is we know how to dress appropriately, I'd say. Because I know when I went to England, people do not know how to dress appropriately for the cold. And
Yeah.
it's kind of sad. It's kind of scary. Like we were in like our like normal Wisconsin winter coats and they're all like, I'm wearing a scarf today. That should be enough. And I'm like, it's -10. Put on a coat. They're like, no, we're too fashionable for coats.
But then you go to countries where it's usually warm all the time and like it'll be 90-degree. I remember when I was in Spain, it was 90 degrees out and people were wearing jeans and sweaters and I was dying and I was in like a dress.
Right.
I don't know.
I think it's just a Europe thing. Europe,
Maybe.
maybe. All right. Well, I think we're gonna wrap up the recorded part, but I'm be more than willing to keep talking afterwards. Um,
Yeah, sure. No
yeah,
problem.
yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed Tess's perspective and everything that she does. Um, and next time we'll talk to someone else about how awesome they are, and it'll be great. So I'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.